former GM of the New York Jets, former VP of football operations for the Dolphins, Mike Tannenbaum. How's your Tuesday going, Mike T?
Doing great. Yeah, trade deadline is a week from today. It's amazing what's going on, right?
It is. It absolutely is. But I think more specifically, it feels like all of these contenders are angling for wide receiver. What does that tell you as a former GM who knows the reason why these guys make these deals, and also just as the person that's been analyzing what's been going on in the NFL, what does that tell you about the wide receiver position?
You know, there's clearly been, an uptake in the value for players that can score points. I still think it starts up front. We saw that last night. The Giants played reasonably well, and Andrew Thomas, that eventually caught up with them despite having Malik Neighbors. But I think if you're Baltimore, you're looking at, hey, we just lost to Cleveland. We got to keep up with Pittsburgh, and Rashad Bateman's been inconsistent. We hit on Zay Flowers, and Deontay Johnson to flip picks was a very reasonable deal for them to do.
So I'm curious because we also just learned this morning about the realization that Stephon Diggs will be out for the season for the Houston Texans. Now, they have a wealth of young receivers, but losing Diggs obviously hurts, right? Nico Collins should be coming back soon. You still got Tank Dell. Got a couple of them in the holster as well there as well. I think Mechie's still with the Texans. Do you think that the Diggs news did anything to expedite the Ravens pulling the trigger on getting Deontay Johnson? If you're the Panthers, are you angling the fact that Diggs is out at them?
Yeah, a little bit. Definitely a sense of urgency. Maybe it gave Carolina a little bit more leverage. But, again, they didn't get a ton for Deontay Johnson. And I just tweeted this, Theo, he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. So I think part of the reason there wasn't a ton of value for him was, he's only going to be there for 8-9 games.
Yeah. So, and if you're the Ravens, that's more beneficial to you than a team that isn't in contention, especially like the Panthers. But that got me and C-Cat talking, Mike T. Like, the Panthers are obviously selling. They've been sellers every single year for the past 3 or 4. The Patriots proved themselves to be sellers as they got off of Uche, and I believe there's probably a couple more people that might be made available. Who else right now in the league do you think might, flip the switch and turn into a seller before next weekend's deadline?
Yeah, a big one for me would be Cleveland. Would they ever do anything with Myles Garrett? They have such a big rebuild, guys, and at some point, would you consider 3 first-round picks for, arguably the best non-quarterback in the league? I mean, he's a great player. You hate to trade him, but until they get the quarterback position figured out, it's going to be hard for them to have sustained success.
I think they got it figured out. They got Jabbo. You ain't see him? 300 yards, 3 touchdowns?
Yeah, I was actually going to piggyback off of that. What did you make of Cleveland over the weekend, specifically Jameis Winston? What is Jameis Winston's reputation within the NFL circles when it comes to being a viable quarterback in the league today?
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating, guys. Like, I think you look at, Jacoby Brissett coming in and beating the Jets. You can look at the decision today of Joe Flacco replacing Anthony Richardson. Jameis Winston is a guy that's immensely talented, has a rocket for an arm. He has been inconsistent in his career, but he's playing faster than Deshaun Watson did, and that offense looked way better than it has the whole year with him.
Mike T, is it over with for Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis? Try to say that fast, like you say that Jameis is playing faster. But then also, not only is it over with for Anthony Richardson with the Colts, are you curious that they did this before he would have had to face the Vikings on Sunday Night Football? Because it feels like they might be protecting him from himself as well.
Yeah, look, the GM in me is I think you got to give a player 3 years and like an earnest 3 years, right? So, look, what he did tapping out, that doesn't help at all. He wasn't playing well. I mean, Joe Flacco was playing better. But look, if I'm in that building, I'm saying to Anthony Richardson, this is not a death sentence. Like, you got to keep working at your craft. You got to get better. We've seen Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield thrive in second and third chances, and you have so much ability. I did their game against Green Bay. I mean, guys, he can make throws that literally nobody on the planet can make, and then he struggles with the check down. So, like, the good news is you do the hard things really well. The bad news is, like, get better at the layups.
Yeah.
And that's all about work ethic and passion. And I would really challenge him to say, like, hey, like, this is a bump in the road. This is not the end of your career.
I know it it should feel that way for him, and it does feel like the Colts have the perfect ecosystem with Shane Steichen, who we've seen have success with Jalen Hurts. He was second in MVP voting. They made it to the Super Bowl when Steichen was the OC for the Eagles, and then even last year with Gardner Minshew. So it feels like the ecosystem is perfect. Do you also feel like maybe the Colts are so good, they're so ready to win now that it works against Anthony Richardson because they don't want to waste a year of production trying to develop him?
I don't know about that. I mean, like you want to be on a good team. You want to be surrounded by a good offensive line. I mean, we've seen the opposite, right? Where, look, not sure Zach Wilson was going to be a good player anyway, guys, but like he didn't have a lot to work with on those Jet teams. So I do
think we
skilled offensive line than not.
Right. And they have the skill guys around them. They have a pretty good offensive line there in Indianapolis, and now they have Joe Flacco, who will try to lift the Colts to the AFC Promised Land. Do you think that specifically with what happened this past weekend and having, the 49ers get a huge win on Sunday Night Football and even up their record at 4-4, do you think that there's still a shot for this team to be a contender this year? No Ayuk. Questions around what Brock Purdy's going to look like through the back end of the season. Do you feel like they kind of fixed some things on Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys?
I do, because Christian McCaffrey's the big X factor.
Yeah.
And, if he's like, think about what a shot in the arm he gave them when he came over from Carolina. And again, like when you're dealing with an Achilles, like I'm sure there's an absolute abundance of caution, guys. But, he is a true difference maker. I don't think there's any team, again, outside of a team acquiring, let's say, Myles Garrett guys, that you're going to get a better player to, improve your roster than, McCaffrey coming back to the 49ers at some point.
Mike, it feels like this Jets team in the AFC is the gift that keeps on giving in terms of talking heads like me, Theo, and you on TV. But I was in New York over the weekend, and I turned on Sports Talk Radio, as I always do. And the name that got tossed around again and again was your colleague at ESPN, Rex Ryan, who did not do anything to dismiss the rumors. He said he wants that job.
Yeah.
He would love a second chance in New York. Do you think where there's smokes, there's fire? Is there any reality where the Jets start 2025 with Rex Ryan, a head coach?
It's a great question. The great thing about Rex is, like, he is not shy. He's very authentic. He certainly wants to coach again. The league was close, and I would say crazier things have happened. Obviously, we had a ton of success in New York together. He's very passionate about that franchise. I think we were all stunned that they lost it to New England. New England's in the middle of a massive rebuild. That was a stunning loss. So we'll see what happens. I do think we'll see Rex coach again. Not sure it's for the Jets, though.
Great set of teeth on Rex Ryan these days, too, man. Beautiful.
Do they pass around a card for the veneers in the sports industry? Because I feel like once you get to a certain level, that teeth change happens at a certain follower count or at a certain level in your career. Mike T, are you going to, make the switch to veneers soon?
Would I be able to keep my, Tuesday hit with you guys?
Yeah.
I think so.
Hell yeah. Matter of fact, we'll give you 2.
Oh, wow. Then I'm in.
Yeah. Mike T, we are introducing a new segment here on Theoretically Speaking because we know you always give the goods, whether it be hot takes or some insight that ends up coming true later on, including when you let us know early before anybody was talking about it that Jordan Love was going to get a big extension with the Packers. We're going to call it the Mike Tannenbaum. With Woj retired, it is only rightful that you take his place in dropping the bomb.
This is kind of BS. How did you not coin this term before Woj, before Sham Charania?
Yeah.
The bomb's in your last name.
Come on.
That irked me, and I don't know why it didn't take me till today to realize that.
Yeah, good point, guys. Now, look, I think we'll see a couple more trades, but I would say, if you were looking for a big trend, I think we've already touched on it. I'm really interested to see Cleveland, Indy, how well they play with these quarterback changes, because I think, look, I'm not saying Cleveland's going to go to the playoffs, but I think they become much more competitive with Jameis Winston. I think short-term, Indy's going to be very competitive with Joe Flacco, and maybe this is the year, guys, that we talk about. This is the year of the backup quarterback.